Hello, dear tea friends from around the world, and welcome to a new Chashi lesson with me, Stéphane Haller, from the TeaMasters blog and the TeaMasters.com e-boutique. And today's subject is going to be about tea and Zen. Tea and Zen. It's a little bit an unusual subject, an unusual topic. I don't often touch on in my blog or in my writings, but there have been a lot of interest about it, raised by several listeners to my series of online classes. And so I thought it's can be a good idea to also talk about it and give you my thoughts on this subject. Now, what I always like to do first is to take a step back and look at it from an historical perspective. The tea and Zen that we know today does have roots in our distant past. And if we understand these roots, maybe we can better understand what is going on between these two subjects. Now, tea, I'm not going to say much about tea because I've been talking about it, and I think that everybody now knows, has a good grasp of what is tea. Let me just say that actually, if we go in the past, tea really started to develop in the Tang dynasty with Lu Yu, who wrote the classic of tea, and this has an importance because before actually even it was written differently, the character tea. It's only during the Tang dynasty that tea was properly defined and that a new character came to describe tea. Now, Zen is a different subject. Actually, when we talk about Zen Buddhism, this is actually the Japanese way of saying Chan Buddhism. And yes, and so I've used the word Buddhism. Buddhism actually started long time ago in India, over 2,500 years ago, but it's only in the first century of our era that Buddhism started to arrive to China, and then it also took many hundreds of years of adaptation of course. Buddhism was not fully welcome in China because there were already two other doctrines: the Confucius school of thought by Confucius, and other of his disciples, and like Mao Tzu and Mozi later on, and also the Taoism school of thought, where the most prominent book is Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, which I really recommend that you read. It's a very philosophical and almost poetic book. So we already had two competing school of thoughts, and up Buddhism, number 3, comes around in the first century. So of course the two other school of thoughts, they did not like that so much, and it took some time for Buddhism to get accepted, and for this thought to also be adapted. First it was only translated, and later on really actually it's during the interestingly it's during the Tang dynasty that Buddhism really started to flourish in China and was really embraced and was made its own. And so it's during Tang dynasty that this new Zen Buddhism, or actually the Chinese they call it Chan Buddhism, was developed. Chan Buddhism, here I have to look at my notes, is developed on the Mahayana Buddhism from India. Okay. Now, like with everything in China, there was always also before Tang a separation between the north and the south. So before Tang, the Buddhism shaped would be a bit more devotional and about morality in the north, whereas in the south it had more spiritual touch and it was more intellectual. So always bear in mind that South and North China always were a bit different, because this has also a bit to do with the fact that in the tea plantations in China are more in the south than in the north. Okay, now Chan Buddhism. What was it about then in during the Tang dynasty? Now it was a practice of dhyana, and it's a way of pacify the heart and the spirit to enable an introspection and reveal another reality beyond our senses. Now, pacify the spirit, have peace of mind, and so that you start to start to see things that are not there just for your eyes to see. The Chinese, they always have very short ways of expressing their thoughts in 4 characters: Ming, Xin, Jian, Xing. Clarify your heart and see the spirit of Buddha, or the nature of Buddha. Make your heart clear, make your heart pure or empty, and then the Buddha will be revealed to you. So this kind of saying also refers to an idea that there can be some instantaneous revelation. The awakening can be really sudden, and to achieve this, one has to really empty his mind, and thinking of nothing, and even nothing is already something. So really try to completely emptying your mind, your spirit. And to do that, the most common practice in Chan Buddhism is actually to think, or to only focus, not even think, only focus on the breathing in and out, in and out. And you could say that when you are making tea, you try not to think of anything, you just make tea. So in that way, it's similar. Now, what else can we say about Zen Buddhism? So it has to be spontaneous. It's about introspection, and there is a universal appeal to this kind of practice, and this kind of emptying your thoughts and looking at a revelation not outside of yourself but inside of yourself is also something that can be accepted by many people and by everybody. It's not it doesn't say, oh, you have to follow this person or that person, that god or that other god. Actually, it tells you that the perfection is in yourself, and you have to just be quiet and listen to your inner thought. Now, this makes me think actually also of Greek philosophy, know yourself, really a cornerstone of Greek philosophy. If you want to lead a good life and you have to know what you want actually in your life. So know yourself. or you can even I can even think of Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, who wanted to become who you are. So become who you are. You have to do also to listen to yourself, to know who you are, so that you can become who you are. Okay, so this actually so was a little bit the philosophy of Chan Buddhism, and we can see that it has a very broad appeal. It can be applied to people who believe in a god, or people who don't believe. If you are communist or capitalist, you can follow Chan Buddhism. At that time, you could also be a Taoist or Confucian and also practice Chan Buddhism. That's why this made Chan Buddhism more acceptable in the Chinese society, because it had really a very broad appeal with a universal message to actually simply clarify your thoughts and listen to your heart. And this reminds me of a book by the National Palace Museum in Taipei, on one of their exhibitions about tea. And Yekei Qingxin was the name of the this exhibition about tea, and it means they translated it as empty vessels, replenished minds. So again, the idea of emptiness, to clarify your heart, to purify your soul, you have to empty it, and this will replenish your mind. Actually, the Chinese is completely different. It means it can also purify your heart. Tea can also clarify your heart. Because, and now here comes so far I've talked about separately between Zen and tea. Now, what happened? So it's very interesting that at the same time as this school of thought appeared in China to do meditation practices to clarify your thought, that at the very same time tea appeared, and a new way of preparing tea. Instead of boiling it, it was now simply thrown in boiled water, but which would stop right away, add some salt and taken out. And this tea helped people stay more awake, and it also for many monks and many people who were enjoying tea, they started to drink more tea than wine, and they realized that tea made their mind clearer, whereas wine would make their mind murky, and the next day especially difficult to wake up. Whereas with tea, they were really in this spirit of a clear mind and feeling very well about themselves, and kind of able to forget about their body and their thoughts, and just able to be in the moment and be drinking tea. Now, drinking tea, this brings me to a good idea that I should have some tea. I'm speaking a bit fast, always a bit nervous for my videos, and this is also you will see, I hope, and this is for me the good benefit of drinking tea while I'm doing the video, is that drinking tea is calming me, is bringing me into a more quiet mode, a more peaceful mode. And now that I start to make the tea, so let me say a few words. So the tea that I chose today for this lesson is inspired by the idea that the monks and the followers of Chan Buddhism, they wanted a tea to vivify their spirit and keep them awake or wake them up when they got up early in the morning, or stay awake late at night if they would be doing meditation in the dark night. So of course I chose Shangpur, Gushupur. Here I've chosen the Lansang 2019 Spring Gushupur. This one comes from 300-year-old trees, and it smells really very nicely. And to brew it, I chose my silverware. Silverware, why? Because during the Tang dynasty, at Famen temple, when they uncovered the teaware from the emperor, they found out that most of the tea were made in silver and with inlays of gold, really beautiful ware. And this is a book of an exhibition that was held in Taipei several years ago at the National History Museum, showing all the wares that were uncovered in this pagoda from the Tang dynasty, the end of the Tang dynasty, and a treasure that was buried there for since the end of Tang until 1980 something, when it was discovered. Now these artifacts, so there are many artifacts about tea. This is where they would hold the salt, really beautiful. This one is how they would grind the tea cakes into tea powder. So you can see it's made of silver. Actually, I took a picture of this on the blog when I went to this exhibition. So it's really beautiful artifacts, and all in silver and gold. Okay, so while we don't have Tang dynasty wares to prepare tea like in Tang dynasty, so this is modern way of preparing tea, but with an idea of being inspired by the Tang dynasty. Also the decoration. Now this teapot is dragon and a phoenix decorated, and some flowers also. On that grinder, actually there's a Pegasus, several Pegasus, flying horses, which also showed a lot of exchanges between the Chinese and the European culture during the Tang dynasty. Now, silver is very hot, that's why I'm using this additional piece of cloth to protect my fingers. Make sure it's really boiling. I'm not putting everything in, otherwise it might become too strong. Okay, here's the idea again. Now you maybe better understand why we have to be very calm. This is also a benefit of to the mind. Now we can also add a few more things about the history of Zen and tea. So first I mentioned that actually they developed at the same time during the Tang dynasty in China, this new school of thought and the tea, and they could really develop in parallel because they were really very suited for each other. Because remember, I think I've spoken about it, but if you really want to pick up the most delicate fragrances and aromas of tea, you have to be very quiet, have to be very focused. Tea, unlike strongly roasted coffee or a strong liquor, tea is really very delicate, very it's 99% water, and so it's really on this 1% that makes all the difference in tea. So if you don't pay attention, you will not see much difference between a high mountain oolong and a Dongding oolong, or between a gushu and a plantation pour. So if you want to really get the most out of your tea, you had to be very focused and calm. And you see, Zen was about purifying the heart, about doing meditation, so about being very, very calm, so be able to, and this calmness, this focus, or this way of trying not to think of anything, actually helped to really pay more attention to the tea. And so it was really very a good mix. The other thing, tea was therefore very popular among monks, and so the monasteries also started to plant tea around the monasteries on the lots of lands that they had. And monasteries during those times were places were not designed to make a lot of agriculture work, and they did not require so much land, and also they were not commercial enterprises designed to generate a lot of agricultural business, and so therefore they did not need big lands, so they often were located in mountains. This also had the other advantage that in mountains the land was cheap, and there were no taxes to be paid to the government, and therefore also in the mountains you had better conditions better drainage for the tea plantation. So naturally, these temples, which did not, where they were working, so there were other monasteries for other kinds of religions or school of thoughts that where the aristocrats sent their kids, and they were gifted with enough food and etc. But the Chan monasteries where usually the people had to work to sustain themselves, and so they made enough products for them to live on, and they also made then their own tea, and so this because they found the tea useful for their meditation practice. Okay, I've placed my tea on this chateau. It looks like a beautiful flower. Smell great. And now also comes the other reason why I chose this tea. It's for its purity. Now, so this tea is not an assemblage, a mix of different teas. It's really single garden from the same kind of trees, same season. So the taste is really completely pure. It's magical. It is pure. Now, pure, many people find it harsh. It can, of course, be brewed harshly if you put too many leaves. That's why I've cut a little bit on the leaves, and my color is still quite dark. But for me, this slight bitterness actually is just adding to the aftertaste, and for me, it's still much more sweet than bitter. And it's pure in a way that is amazing. It's a friend once said divine. Now this is the word that comes to mind, divine. So imagine a Buddhist monk in the Tang dynasty. Let's pour some tea. Let's try to find awakening. And then he drinks this tea. The eyes start to find life and to, wow, what is this? This is so good. It's so peaceful, so smooth. Wow, I see Buddha. So this, I really, we can all imagine how easily this can be turned into a spiritual experience, and it's there is great evidence that it really helped monks in the Tang dynasty until today, and that's why you see still many people use this spiritual feeling to promote their teas. Now the second part of of my thought is that so we've seen it makes sense. It's a great help to when you meditate, to wake you up. Now I feel also much more present, much more there in the moment. caffeine in the tea is quite powerful, especially in pu'er. So my mind is awake, is fully there. But now here comes the but. Spirituality is still a very personal feeling, and one should be careful not to be too carried away by this kind of spiritual approach to tea. My recommendation is more, if you want to learn about meditation, how to calm yourself, how to learn to breathe in, breathe out, there are very, very good resources now available like on the net. One of the very best is the Plum Village. It's in France, and tomorrow will be their chief monk's 94th birthday. A Vietnamese with a very difficult name too. I don't want to mispronounce it, so I'm not going to pronounce it, but I have many friends who come from this village and who are teaching now the same material that they got from their master to more people about how to do meditation, how to find enlightenment. So I would really rather recommend that you go to Plum Village, listen to the meditation advice that is given there. Yesterday I just to prepare for this class, I listened to a 17-minute speech on how to breathe in, breathe out. Very simple way of meditating, and the voice is much more peaceful than mine. I apologize. So, which is actually making my point. Go to me for tea, but go to Zen masters for Zen. And it's good to combine both when you are making tea, but the meditation part, really learn it from the masters of meditation, not from the TeaMasters. I should do more learning, but I also think it's better to be really strong in one subject. Difficult to be strong in so many subjects. The mind, meditation, spirituality, Zen Buddhism is such a broad world that I would get lost quite quickly if I wanted to do more than an introduction to you. But this tea is good. So, Plum Village is a very good resource to learn about meditation. Meditation, I could see from my own personal experience, has a lot of advantages and can be really very useful to alleviate even some psychological problems. I've seen in my family, some family members had cancer, and which they attributed in part to some bad thoughts, and so after the chemo worked, they also did go through some meditation and a regular practice of meditation, and I can see that now they are much more happy, because through meditation, yes, you learn to purify your thoughts, purify your heart, and then you better know who you are, what you want in life, and you know what you want to achieve, and this makes you happy to at least to already to know what you want simply by listening to yourself. And drinking tea, it can be that moment when you have time to do meditation. Maybe it's you can do meditation without tea, but some people actually find it useful to combine both together. But the techniques of meditation, I think, are best learned from people who teach. But my experience is that, yes, making tea by being very focused on how you prepare it is a little bit like Zen meditation, because you try really not to think. You try to make all your moves in a very automatic way, because you try to do them and again on a daily basis in such a manner that you don't even have to think so much about it, and you do it, and you do all these moves in a very quiet way. So let's demonstrate again. Now, then Buddhism also had then this kind of influence on poetry during the Tang dynasty, with Li Bai or Du Fu or Wang Wei. These kind of poets also convey a bit the spirit of Zen Buddhism and of the spirit of tea. So it can also be interesting if you want to get some inspiration about this, to look at Tang Dynasty poetry. And I also wanted to mention, I based this class also on this book, Histoire de la pensée chinoise, Dan Cheng, so the history of Chinese thought by An Cheng. This helped me to prepare for this class. She's teaching about all the Chinese school of thoughts, and it's really very interesting to see how you have these three big doctrines: Confucian, Taoism, and Buddhism. And at the end of the book, you think, actually, it's almost like they are all melting into each other, because the school of thought, they change so much. They take one part from here, from there. At the end, you almost don't understand it much anymore. I think I can be a bit shorter in my brewing time. It's only the second brew. This is the moment when you start to smell the tea, this very powerful tea, and you also wonder how it's going to taste, and you know it's a joy to taste it. So it's very interesting to really to see that there was during the Tang dynasty this two school of thoughts that developed together almost, tea and Zen Buddhism, and this is why probably many TeaMasters you feel they need to dress up in a certain way, like monks. So this really dates back to that influence in time. But my experience is also in Taiwan. There was a scandal a few years ago where one famous tea master was really picked up by the media for selling teas that were not as old as claimed, and this guy really made a fortune, had super luxury cars. Well, no problem with that, but at the same time he was looking like Gandalf the Great, Gandalf the Grey with a stick and walking slowly, but enjoying fast cars, and actually still fit on his quick on his feet, and yeah. So tea, spirituality is can be part of your ritual. Just be a bit careful to see where the expertise is. Tea is really a large chunk of a big universe by itself. Zen Buddhism is another very big universe. It's better to, in my experience, to seek meditation advice from the experts of meditation and tea advice from the tea experts. Cheers. Yeah, be a bit beware of people who try to sell a spiritual awakening. It's of course tea. Another thing is tea community. Religion in Latin, ligere is to bind people together. So religion is also a way to create a community. There are many communities on Facebook, and tea community is also an important community. I feel this tea feeling, the sharing good cup of tea should be enough to create this sense of community. We don't need to add spirituality. Now the good thing about Zen Chan Buddhism is that, as I said, it's very universal. It's inclusive. You can be a Biden or Trump supporter. You can be communist, capitalist. You can be in Africa or in the North Pole. It's not going to impact on any of your other beliefs. It's only about looking in yourself for purification of your heart and learning what your heart wants. So in this sense, Zen Buddhism is really very nice and not threatening, but yeah, it's it can be part of your practice. Just be a bit careful about who you listen to. Trust experts. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching and for supporting my channel, and hope to see you next week. Bye bye.